there, thank you so much again for joining me on this channel. As always, I'm very grateful for all your previous views, likes, subscriptions and shares. Someone suggested on the comments page that we should look at Christianity and the cross, so I thought that's what we'd do for this particular video. And as it's Easter Sunday for many in the Christian tradition, I thought it would be absolutely appropriate. So I confess, a few years ago I did try and explain the cross and Christianity very badly through the use of Duplo. As you can see, it was rather shambolic, so I have a chance to at least redeem myself through this video, and let's move on. To understand the cross of Christianity, we need to go back to the first book of the Bible in the Old Testament, which is Genesis, and creation. If you remember, God created everything through speech, and the world was good, the heavens were good, and the relationship between humanity and God in the shape of Adam and Eve was also good. However, things are not all rosy in the Garden of Eden. It all goes the shape of the pear, or should that be the shape of the apple? Well, actually, in Genesis, it doesn't actually tell us what type of fruit Adam and Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What we do know is that they were expressly told not to by God, and as a result, sin enters the world. Sin for Christians is something which completely destroys that relationship between humanity and God. God then does something very interesting. God makes a sacrifice. God kills an animal to make skins, to make clothing for Adam and Eve. According to Genesis, they are ashamed of their nakedness and also ashamed of the sin that they had committed. And what you get is a picture of what is to happen further on in the Bible. The shedding of blood for the forgiveness of sins. And Christians see the death and sacrifice of Jesus on Good Friday as the ultimate sacrifice for all sins. This is how much God loved the world, it says in John 3 verse 16. And in many ways the cross is an expression of God's love for the world. So much love that he sent his only son. And there's a fantastic verse in the book of Hebrews, which is part of the Bible, near the back of the New Testament. It says, everyone has to die once, then face the consequences. Christ's death was also a one-time event, but it was a sacrifice that took care of sins forever. So if you like, the first sacrifice was for Adam and Eve, was an animal. The ultimate final sacrifice was for the whole of humanity through God sending his only son, Jesus. But of course, that's not the end of the story, because on Easter Sunday, after 3 days after being sacrificed on the cross, Jesus defeated death by resurrection. And that's a picture also for Christians, that this life is not the end. There is going to be eternal life in heaven. Now, I thought trying to explain the message of the cross was complicated enough, but even more complex are the origins of Easter. It is quite astonishing how many origin myths there are, how many claims and counterclaims. So I've tried to do this as best I can, but I fully appreciate that maybe when you do your own research, you may find some different answers. So, Emperor Constantine was the first Roman emperor to be Christian, and about 312-ish, he decided to convert the entire empire, because you always do what the emperor did. Anyway, what then happened is that he wanted Christianity to have a chance to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, as he recognised it was such an important moment in the faith. What he then decided to do was to pick the first full moon after the spring equinox. That's why Easter always moves. Spring, badoing, is a time of celebration. No, just stop with the jokes. And no different here for the Romans. March was named after Mars, not the chocolate bar, but the Roman god of war. And it was also the start of the Roman year, so no doubt there was lots of celebrations too. Also, interestingly enough, there are lots of chariot races to celebrate this, presumably that warrior-like nature. And in addition, there was also a chance to celebrate Ceres with Ceralia, who was the goddess of agriculture. The reason why there's a rather cross-looking fox, because one festival involved tying blazing torches to the tails of live foxes and letting them loose in the Colosseum. We also get the appearance of an egg, which was a symbol of fertility and new life, and the egg preceded the great religious procession for the goddess Ceres. But the fun didn't stop there in ancient Rome. There was also Floralia for the goddess Flora, who with lots of games and joyousness. And one of my favourite incidents was apparently in 30 AD, the Emperor Galba actually had a tightrope walking elephant. Nothing says Easter like a tightrope walking elephant. But what about the name? Easter. Well, one idea is that it comes from Eostra, and about 1300 years ago the Anglo-Saxon monk, the Venerable Bede, who was writing in the north of England, mentions for the first time the April month known as Eostra Monath, and the thinking is that Eostra was in fact an Anglo-Saxon goddess, most likely to have been localised in the southeast of England, and that is actually the first time we have her name appearing. But what's interesting is that Eostra becomes more of a character thanks to Jacob Grimm. He was one of the Grimm brothers of fairy tale fame. In about 1835 in Germany, he writes the Teutonic mythology, and he really builds up the character of Eostra that was mentioned only once about 1500 years previously by that monk in Durham. And what he does, he just talks about how Eostra is a fair maiden dressed in white, frolicking round the countryside with a big bunch of keys, gathering spring water on Easter morning. At this point, you may be asking, quite reasonably, how does the little Easter bunny fit into all of this? Well, the rabbit has long been a symbol and various traditions. They are a symbol of women, femininity, female deities, and also connected with hedgerow magic, the lunar cycle, fertility, longevity, and rebirth. That's a big responsibility for a very small mammal. Now, apparently the ancient Greeks believed that a rabbit could have baby rabbits without, having relationships. And this persisted into the medieval realm, where rabbits became associated with the Virgin Mary, who of course gave birth to Jesus without knowing man. There's a suggestion that eggs became so closely associated with Easter because of representing a financial transaction. I know it's not entirely glamorous, but bear with me. Apparently, Maundy Thursday was the last day of the financial year during medieval times, and if you were owing your landlord a huge amount of money, you needed to pay that off in some way, shape or form, so you would use the land around you. One method was to actually shoot rabbits and hares and give those to the landlord, and also eggs. Remember, it had been Lent, so of course eating and consuming milk, butter, eggs, all those luxury items was not acceptable as part of the festivities of Lent. So you would give your landlord a huge pile of eggs. German immigrants on their way to the United States of America in the 1600s also took with them the idea of the Easter bunny or the Easter rabbit. And this wonderful image here from Pennsylvania shows the Easter rabbit, or Oscar Hawes as he became known as. I've realised I'm now correcting myself in my own videos, but of course Oscar Hawes was actually a hare, not a rabbit. I apologise for that factual mistake. And the idea of the chocolate egg came from Germany and France, and the first chocolate egg in the UK appeared in 1873 courtesy of Fry's in Birmingham. So hopefully we've made some sort of sense of what Easter is all about, certainly from the Christian perspective in the significance of the death and resurrection of Jesus, but also trying to piece together where all these different customs and traditions have come from. I'll leave you very finally with the hot crust bun, because I tried looking into it and my gosh, it is such a tangled history that I'm simply going to leave that one to you to find out. Anyway, as always, I'm very grateful for your watching, and however you celebrate this particular spring festival, whether it's significant for you for the resurrection of Jesus, whether you want to pay homage to Oscar Hawes, or simply want to gorge yourself on chocolate eggs, I wish you very well, and as always, enjoy your learning.